Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Carl's Christian Podcast. Today's episode is going to be about education and why education is important, and it's going to be taught by Pastor Mark Hoffman. So we hope you enjoy episode 5 of Carl's Christian Podcast. This was a class when it was recorded, so there might be a few cuts here and there, but we hope you do enjoy.
Okay, let's get into this. Okay, I want to start there at that second paragraph where it says, at the time of the Declaration of Independence, the quality of education had enabled the colonies, now listen to this, to achieve a degree of literacy from 70% to 100%. Did you know that? So that's an interesting fact. I mean, can we even say that today? That there's 100% literacy, in America? I don't think so. Yeah, I agree. So this was not education restricted to the few, okay? So modern scholarship reports the prevalence of schooling and its accessibility to most segments of the population. So Moses Tyler, historian of American literature, indicates the colonists' familiarity with history, extensive legal learning, lucid exposition, and constitutional principles, showing indeed that somehow out into that American wilderness have been carried the very accent of cosmopolitan thought and speech. Okay? So Moses Tyler, historian of American literature, indicates the colonists' familiarity with history. Okay, this guy's a historian. Okay? And what he found out was the colonists were very familiar with history. They were with extensive legal learning, lucid exposition of constitutional principles, showing indeed that somehow out of the American wilderness had been carried the very accent of cosmopolitan thought and speech. Now, it means familiar with or at ease in many different countries and cultures. In other words, it's a mix, right? Cosmopolitan. You're comfortable with different mixes of culture. Let's put it that way, okay? So what he's saying is this is what people in the American wilderness had going for them. So much so that as we continue to read here, when the American state papers arrived in Europe, they surprised and astonished the quote-unquote enlightened men. Americans had been dismissed as illiterate backwoodsmen, as perhaps even law-defying revolutionists. But when the papers were read, they found to certain nearly every quality indicative of personal and national greatness. Dr. Lawrence Kremen, in his study of American education from 1607 to 1789, credits the high quality of American education to what? The single most important culture influence in the lives of Anglo-Americans. In other words, that word Anglo-Americans means people that came over from Europe. People that came over from Europe and brought their culture with them. They brought their religious beliefs with them, their religious principles and ideas with them, okay? All right, let's go down to the subtitle where it says Christian Education. And it says, colonial Americans exemplified qualities of personal and national greatness because of their Christian education. To restore liberty and greatness to America, we must restore Christian education to America. For education to be Christians, one's philosophy, why, what, who, when, and where, methodology, how, and curriculum, what, must be Christian. That is, to be Christ-like or pertain to Christ, okay? It's been said the philosophy of the schoolroom, and I believe Abraham Lincoln was one of the people that quoted this. It has been said that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. You ever heard that quote before? It's just that a worldly philosophy brings captivity. And that the Bible tells us that. It says, see to it that no one takes you, this is the quote, See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception. Now, this is the Bible. According to the traditions of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. So, a worldly, humanistic philosophy in the present educational system of many nations has produced bondage within individual lives. As an example of this, there are 30 to 40 million American adults today who are functionally illiterate. They cannot read a job application, a warning sign at work, or a label on a medicine bottle. And that is bondage, right? Isn't it bondage if you're not literate enough to fill out an application or read a sign, a danger sign, or read the back of a medicine bottle? I mean, you're in, huh?
You're in danger.
You're in danger, right? And it's literally, there's a bondage to it, that you're kind of, when I say bondage, you're in captivity to, there's no freedom in not having an education. The more education you have, the more freedom you have. Let's put it that way, okay? And the more education you have, the more choices you have in life. The less education you have, the fewer choices you have to make, let's say, choose your occupation, right? So you're limited. The more education, you have more choices, so that brings more freedom to your life. Experience in public schools, we would probably agree with most modern dictionary definitions of the word, which define it as teaching primarily is concerned with imparting information, okay? While education does involve imparting information, according to the Bible, this is a secondary concern. Think about that. Information is good, it's important, but it's not the primary reason that you're getting an education. And we're going to find out what that primary reason is. Noah Webster, in his original 1828 dictionary, which I have on my phone, by the way, it's an app that you can get, reveals to us 4 minimal goals of education. He writes, education comprehends all the series of instruction and discipline, which is intended to, 1, enlighten the understanding, 2, correct the temper, that means your attitude, 3, form the mannerisms and habits of youth, and 4, fit them for usefulness in their future stations. Okay? So this is really important for young people. Okay, let's continue. We can see from his definition that education deals primarily with the inward man, with forming character. The formation of character is inevitable. Bad character, not good, is the result of the failure of the public schools to discipline. And when I say discipline, I don't mean just punishment. I mean to teach a discipline, to discipline students to do their work, or discipline their student. Discipline means having a system or regiment that you're involved in, right? It's not just meaning punishment. Okay, so the first question is, why should education go beyond just information? Oh, by the way, let me read what comes before that. The biblical method of education, the principal approach. Methods of education are not neutral. Colonial America had a biblical method of education. Okay, so it had a method of education. It had a plan for education. It is not a prepackaged daily lesson plan that a teacher follows in instructing her students, which each step is given each day for each class. And there's nothing wrong with having a plan, but this is saying that it's not regimented. Okay. Rembrandt was a great artist, also a phenomenal man who loved God with all his heart. Some of his artwork, I've seen it at Chrysler Hall. It's amazing. Actually, there's a painting of that Rembrandt did that amazingly looks like me, with one of those fancy hats on and everything. Yeah, I mean, I walked in there and went, whoa, that looks like me. Adam Smith in economics, John Locke, we have discussed John Locke in this class. In civil government, to name only a few, those men who founded America were only able to produce a free and prosperous society because they knew how to reason biblically in all areas of life. Right? We are in great need today of restoring the art of biblical reasoning to our educational system. We may have more facts taught in our schools today, even though in many fields major facts are conspicuously missing. But we must teach more than just facts. We must teach how to arrive at those facts as well. Now, did you hear that? We must teach how to arrive at those facts. Why? Why do we need to teach that? I'll tell you why. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can find out for yourself. You see, you'll have an education. You'll have the discipline. You'll be disciplined in your education enough to go, well, let me just see if that teacher knows what he's talking about, right? Let me just go research that myself. I can do that. I have the skill set to do that. You don't have to take my word for it, okay? We must teach how to arrive at those facts as well. To more fully understand the principle approach, let's take a look at each of these words separately. A principle, according to Webster's 1828 dictionary, number one, the cause, source, or origin of anything. That's the principle. From that which a thing proceeds. Number two, element, constitute part. A principle is an element. In chemistry, an element is the lowest form in which matter can exist naturally. The principal approach is also a holistic method of education, that is, the instruction of the whole to the part. Take history, for example. Instead of teaching fragments of history throughout the various grade levels, which seemingly no unifying factor among the different classes, a biblical approach would look at the whole history first, and then look at the parts in more detail. That's what I just said. And those always in relationship to the whole. The whole history can be looked at from a biblical philosophy because there is overall purpose in history, which unifies all the specific events of history. From a humanistic viewpoint, there is no purpose in history, and hence no unifying theme, which ties events of history together. Okay, so you're experiencing a lot of that right now in our culture. A truly biblical approach to education involves more than just taking various academic subjects and trying to squeeze the Bible into them. A principled approach to education reveals the source, origin, and purpose of all knowledge. Revolves around God and His plan for man. Okay, so uncovered means you have to do something to uncover it. In other words, education is work. It's work. It's work. It's delving into the unknown, finding the unknown, and then relating that truth to your life. Is the best way to implant truth. That's an interesting word they use there, right? Implant. The process of researching, reasoning, relating, and recording, the four R'ings, is the best way to implant truth within our hearts. The best method by which to learn and be educated. In most schools today, students are seldom required to research, reason, relate, or record in their pursuit of being educated. This is true in everyday study of subjects as well as the test on the subjects. Most tests are fill in the blank, matching or true false. This type of test were not used in our schools until the 1920s. Before that, essays were the primary method of testing. Students can take and pass these tests for years and years without truly learning. He's talking about the fill in the blank tests. He's saying students can take and pass these tests for years and years without truly learning how to reason and think and be prepared for life after the completion of school. And so that's why you have scores and scores of people coming out of our secular school systems and not really having a good education. Okay? Consequently, Americans today do not know how to reason and think. All right, so essays. Writing essays is an excellent way to implant within the student the ability to research, reason, relate, and record, all right? All right, so there's going to be some of that going on in this class. You're going to be challenged to write essays on certain subjects, okay? And it's not to throw you a curveball. If you have a problem with that, we're going to help you, okay? We're not here to trip you up. We're to help you to get this stuff done. We're to help you if you have. When I was in school, I mean, I hated essays. I hated doing essays. I hated writing all that stuff. And I wish somebody would have taken the time with me and said, hey, you know, this is not that hard. And it's not. Actually, it's fun once you start getting into it. You'll. I know you don't think that right now, but it actually is. Okay, you know why it's fun? Because the light bulb, once you start getting into it, the light bulb goes off and you go, oh, I can do this. I can really do this. And once you realize you can do it, then it becomes easy. And when it becomes easy, it becomes fun. Okay. So, writing essays is an excellent way to implant within the student the ability to research, reason, relate, and record, because you have to do all of those things, right, to do an essay. Writing essays enables students to truly express themselves, to communicate what they really know and believe. So it's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you find out what you really know. As one writes his ideas in complete sentences, he's forced to reason and think for himself. The personal expression brings liberty to the individual. He will not be dependent upon the media. Listen to me now. He will not be dependent upon the media, teachers, or anyone else for his ideas, for he will have learned how to search out the truth for himself. And I pray to God that each one of you learn, that if you learn anything, that you learn that you learn how to search out the truth for yourself. All right, notebooks. The compilation of notebooks by students or on various subjects and topics is an excellent means of inculcating truth within them. Instead of being handed a textbook at the beginning of the year and memorizing pages of facts and information, in order to receive good grades, the student develops his own textbook. Okay? That's why these notebooks are so important. You develop your own textbook by taking notes from the teacher and doing his own research and writing from various resources, which can include a textbook. All right? So, the notebook method not only assures that the student acquires knowledge, but it also builds character within the individual. That's the primary purpose of education, right? Facts and information, it's good. It's good to have that kind of thing. You have to have it. But the deeper meaning, the deeper reason for education is you're building character. All right, so self-government, which is a part of building character, by the way. Self-government, industry, orderliness, discipline, and the ability to communicate and reason are only a few of the character qualities produced by the notebook method of education. Americans' founding fathers were educated by the notebook method. Many of George Washington's early notebooks are still preserved in the Library of Congress. I've read some of them. They're interesting, very interesting. And neatness and consistency are readily seen within the pages of his manuscripts. His lifetime habits, okay? And what are we trying to develop here? Building character, good habits, right? We want a lifetime of good habits, right? Neatness, consistency, readily seen within the pages of his manuscripts, right? His father required this of him from his first years of being educated. All right, here's another person. In a letter to his father on June 2nd, 1777, at the age of 10, John Quincy Adams wrote, P.S. Of course, he was one of our presidents, right? I think he was the sixth president. Yeah, I think we got that straight. He said, P.S., sir, and he's 10 years old now. Think about this. P.S., sir, if you will be so good as to favor me with a blank book, I will transcribe the most remarkable occurrences I meet, within my reading, which will serve to fix them upon my mind. This is quite an amazing statement for a 10-year-old, not only in this, that his literary level is beyond most college graduates today, but also in his educational insight. Our future sixth president was revealing the importance of a notebook approach to education. There are many other practical education methods that can be used to restore the 4 R's. You know, college isn't for everybody. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there. College is a good thing if you can get the best thing is get an apprenticeship and a college education. That's like the ultimate. But to have a good job in life, an apprenticeship is a wonderful program. My son is a master electrician right now because he went through a 5-year apprenticeship program with the union in the state of Virginia. He's now a licensed electrician with the state and makes all the money he wants. Okay, so an apprenticeship is a great way to get an education. Okay, if you do not exercise in many years and then participate in strenuous activity, your body will hurt. Is that true? Yes. Yeah. Likewise, if you haven't exercised your mind for years and begin to use it strenuously, it will also hurt. All right, I've experienced that. I have taken on new projects that challenged my intellect, okay? And it actually, it's an emotional hurt, right? It's kind of an emotional thing. It's not really well, I guess you could get a headache from it, but it's not a physical hurt, it's an emotional hurt. So, but the more you use your mind, the better in shape you will be to think. It's just like working out with a weight, right? A weightlifter. If he works out with his weight with his arms every day, eventually his arms get bigger. Well, it's the same thing with your mind. That's what you're doing right now. You're creating mental muscle. Your mind is more than just a computer, garbage in, garbage out. Now think about this. It's like a womb, for you can get more out of your mind than you put in it. This is part of true reasoning. Okay? So, to sum up what has been stated previously, these 3 elements are essential for the education to be an education to be truly Christian. All right, well, let's read it. A teacher who is a living witness or textbook, 2 Corinthians 3:3, is the most important aspect of education. When you teach, you impart more of who you are than what you know. Isn't that interesting? Students will read you. Therefore, to be most effective as a teacher, we are all teachers, for we instruct all we come in contact with. You must master what you teach so that it is a living part of who you are, right? You must, whatever you teach, you must become part of you. The content in the material we teach, the Bible must be our central text, right? As we have discussed, not in superficial way. While the Bible doesn't contain all the facts of all the subjects, it does contain all the principles and reveals God's purpose for each subject. All right, method. In addition to a godly character and content, the education method must also be Christian. This method should build godly character, right? One of the main reasons that you're getting an education. Impart a love of learning, right? And prepare individuals to take dominion over the earth. This method that they're talking about here should impart, there's something, this thing about learning, for some people, it can be an agonizing experience. It can be. It can be very hard. It can be very stressful, But one of the things that can be cultivated in your life is you can literally turn that around. I used to hate school. I hated it. I hated school because I wanted to be out and about and do things. Well, the reason I hated school was because nobody took the time to cultivate it in my life. Okay, that's why I love educating you guys right now, because I understand the importance of it. Okay, so because I didn't get a great education, I didn't get it from I didn't get it from society. I educated myself, okay? I finally got to the place where I decided that I wanted to be an informed individual. I wanted to educate myself, okay? I don't have any degrees or anything, right? But I'll place my knowledge in any particular subject against anybody with any degree, okay? Because I took the time to study, to become more than what I am, okay? That's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to decide to become more than what you think you are right now.
We hope you have enjoyed episode 5 of Carl's Christian Podcast. If you did, then please make sure to like today's podcast, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and leave a comment telling us what you thought about today's podcast episode. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up your child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Anyways, we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast episode, and we'll see you all in episode 6 of Carl's Christian Podcast. Have a blessed day.